webinar today, Planning Your MBA Application Deadline Strategy. My name is Neri and I will be the moderator on behalf of UniMy Prep team. And I'm here with a very interesting guest, Dr. Don Martin, a founder of Grad School Road Map. He has helped hundreds of prospective graduate students from all over the world to get admitted in their dream school. So I'm very happy to welcome Don here. Before giving you the word, though, I just want to tell everyone who is listening right now, you can ask questions anytime during the webinar using the Q&A box. And we will take time to answer at the end of the session. All questions are welcome, so don't hesitate. Everything seems is working fine right now, Don, so I'm giving the word to you.
Thank you so much, Nelly, and hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you today. I so enjoy working with UniMy Prep, with the Advent Group, Access MBA. It's been a privilege these last several years to partner with them, and I'm really honored to be asked to do webinars during the year to try and help individuals who are thinking about business education down the road. And if that is you, then you're at the right place today, and thank you so much for taking time to join us. Here's a little information about my background. I'm not going to read this, you can read it for yourself, but I will say one of the things that may have drawn you to join us today has to do with the fact that I did serve as Dean of Admissions at the Chicago Booth School of Business. I was there for 11 years. During that time, I personally evaluated and made final application decisions on over 80,000 candidates. So what I'll be sharing with you today is based on that experience at Chicago Booth, as well as 28 years working as an admissions dean at Columbia, Northwestern, a few other schools, along with Booth. And my career has been amazing. I could write a book. I've absolutely enjoyed it so much. And it's a pleasure to have a chance to be here again with you today. Now, what are we going to cover in our time together? By the way, I expect that I'll speak between 30 and 40 minutes. This will not be a long, drawn out presentation. But as Nelly mentioned at the beginning, something that she knows I'm about to say is that I love questions. I love questions. There's no dumb question. There's no bad question. If you want to know something, please, there's a Q&A box in this platform here that we're on today. So if you have a question, please put it there at any point as I'm presenting. And when I finish, Nelly has graciously offered to monitor those questions and ask them, and we'll take all the time we can to answer as many as possible. So please keep those questions coming, whether it's something I said or something I didn't say about which you have a question. Please feel free to type it in that Q&A box, okay? So today I'm going to share with you probably 30 seconds, just a brief overview of what Grad School Road Map is. After 28 years working in full-time higher ed, I founded Grad School Road Map. I can't believe it, 14 years ago already. That doesn't seem possible, but that's what it is. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about that. Then one of my always added parts of a webinar is what's the biggest mistake you can make. If you've heard me speak before, you're going to know this answer before we get to it, but I put it in here because it is absolutely so critical. It can make the difference between your success and your happiness in your business education. I'm telling you, this is absolutely true. Then we're going to get to the meat of this presentation. Some MBA deadline tips, thoughts, strategies. I want to talk with you about MBA application deadlines. I have several things to share with you based on my experience with that. Then we're going to talk about some do's and don'ts during the application process, 7 critical tips regarding preparing your applications, and then we'll share briefly about my book, my coaching work, some upcoming webinars that we're going to have, very exciting webinars about some topics that are not often discussed. Last time, we spent an entire webinar talking about recommenders, how important they are. Oftentimes, most applicants don't give that much thought, but that is critical. Recommendation letters can make or break an application. Well, in the upcoming webinars that I'll be telling you about in a minute here, or toward the end of the presentation, we're going to cover another very important part of the process that is often not discussed. So that's how we're going to handle this. As we say in the United States, when we're about to cover a lot of information in a short period of time, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. Okay, Grad School Road Map, very quickly. This is an admissions resource, really, for prospective students, applicants, alumni, enrollment management staff. We consult, as you can see here, we've worked with one-on-one with over 600 graduate school applicants. Actually, I need to change that. It's now 650. But at any rate, we've had a tremendous success rate working with individual applicants for MBA programs and other graduate programs as well. You can find all of this out if you go on to the Grad School Road Map website. I'll provide that information for you at the end of our session today. Now, what is the biggest mistake prospective graduate students make? And this, I put graduate students here because this applies to any field of study: business, law, medicine, Master of Arts, Master of Science, PhD, whatever the program. There is still a big, big, big mistake prospective students make every year. This has gone on ever since I started working in admissions. I even hesitate to tell you how long ago that was, because most of you probably weren't here at that time. I started in 1980. Can you believe it? Look how good I look. But anyway, I've been doing this a long time, and this mistake gets made over and over and over again. That's why I put it in every webinar. The biggest mistake you can make as a prospective MBA candidate, prospective graduate applicant, is not doing adequate research. When? Before you apply. I'm astounded at how little some applicants honestly know about the programs they're thinking about, other than what someone else has told them, a friend, a family member, or someone, or a ranking. That's it. They don't do any other research. That astounds me. That is really unfortunate if that is the case. How can you avoid making this mistake? Let me share 3 tips. Please start out by spreading the net wide. If you're thinking about an MBA, at a minimum, you should start off with 20 to 25 options, at least. Did you know there are over 700, 800 accredited MBA programs in the world? And you mean to tell me that there are only 10 worth looking at? That doesn't make any sense. That's illogical. You should have at least 20 to 25 initial options that you want to check out. And to help you do that, create a spreadsheet. Put those options, each one of them, on the spreadsheet, and then decide what you want to compare. And I hope that some of the areas you're going to want to compare would include: what is the curriculum? How is the program offered? What are the faculty all about? Have I spoken with any current students or recent graduates? I can't believe how many applicants do not ever do that. Here they are getting ready to invest their time, quite a bit of money, perhaps move overseas, and they haven't even asked anybody what they think of the programs they're thinking of applying to. Wow. By all means, have you reached out to students? Did you take, at a minimum, a virtual campus tour? Do you know what the campus looks like? Have you done an internet search to see if this particular business school has been in the news, for better or worse? If it's bad news, it's not going to be on their website, let me tell you, but it will be on the internet. Have you done that? Have you checked out financial aid opportunities, scholarship opportunities if you're an international student? There are, in my book, in the first chapter on research, it's devoted to the research process, I talk about 26 areas to compare among your options before you narrow them down, before you narrow it down to the 5, 7, 9 business schools to which you will apply. Please, please take some time to do this. It could make all the, I had students at Chicago Booth, yes, at Chicago Booth, come in to see me soon after they started, and they said, Dr. Don, I hate this program. This was a mistake. I should never have come here. And it was very clear they had done, all they thought about was the rankings, or, oh, it's such a great school in what I thought was finance only. That's a mistake. That is not true about Chicago Booth. It is not a finance only school by any means. They didn't know where it was located. They were very unhappy at Booth. What a waste. What a sad waste. Please take the time to, you even have time now. If you're planning to apply this fall to enroll next year in the fall of 2023 in business school, you still have plenty of time to do this. Did you know there is a top business school in the United States? Do you know what they offer to all of their full-time MBA students, every one of them? They offer them a mentorship with a recently retired or semi-retired Fortune 500 CEO. Did you hear that? Every MBA student it's called the Executives in Residence Program. Would you like to know the name of that business school? I have 3 words for you. Do your research. That's just one example of many very well-kept secrets about business schools that applicants never find out about. And it's such a shame. Remember, in closing on this point, your perception about the schools you're thinking about happens after you've done your research. It's where you end up afterward. It's not where you start out. So please, 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 if you take nothing else away from this presentation today, please take away 3 words. Do my research. Okay? It will help you immensely, beyond measure. All right, now let's get to MBA application deadlines. Of course, there are different ways that deadlines are presented for applicants, and I'd like to offer you several thoughts and some tips around application deadlines to help you as you strategize about this very important part of your MBA application experience. First of all, there are typically 2 types of deadlines. There will be a rolling admission situation, or there will be application deadlines, specific deadlines. Rolling admission means that if, let's say, Booth School of Business, which is what I'm most familiar with, let's say that Booth School of Business decides that they're going to have rolling admission. What that means is they'll open their applications for you to submit on, let's say, October the 1st, and they will keep them open all the way through perhaps February 28th or March 31st of the following year. And anytime during that window, October 1st through the end of February or March, you can submit your application at any time that you wish. That's how rolling admission works. Now, when there are specific deadlines, that's exactly as it's said here. There are dates. Typically, there could be 3 or 4 times during the application season where you will be able to submit an application on a certain date. So it might be October 1, November 1, January 1, and March 1. And you can submit a deadline, an application for any of those deadlines. Okay? Those are the 2 main types of application deadlines you'll be looking at. My first piece of advice is apply earlier rather than later. In other words, if rolling admission ends on March 31st, you should not be, ideally, you should have your application in at the very latest by the end of January. Because with rolling admission, admission decisions are made as they go along. So by the time it gets to January's applications, when it comes to February or March, I don't think there would be much room left for anyone by that point. So if you're going to do rolling admission and it opens on October 1st, I would suggest certainly by the end of January, if not by the end of December. Get it in that earlier section or segment of rolling admission rather than waiting until the end. Similarly, if there are 4 application deadlines, by all means, don't wait till the 4th one. Typically, when I worked at Chicago Booth, we had 3 deadlines. The only individuals I admitted from the 3rd deadline were those who would help me meet my enrollment targets that were set for me by the administration of Chicago Booth. In other words, they would say to me, Don, we want you to bring in this many men, this many women, this many US citizens, this many international students, this many majority, this many minority, this many with business backgrounds, this many without business backgrounds. I had a whole list of criteria that wasn't my decision. It was the decision of the administration, but I needed to follow that. The only applicants that got admitted for me from the 3rd round at Booth every year were those who I still needed to help me fill in those enrollment requirements by the administration. So ideally, if there are 3 deadlines, 4 deadlines, if you can, get your application in either for the 1st round or the 2nd round. Now, for international applicants, you may be actually required, if you're going to be considered for scholarship help, if you're going to have an opportunity to secure your visa, your student visa, you will have to apply by the 2nd deadline. That may be specifically stated in the application instructions. But again, my point here is try to apply a little earlier rather than waiting till the end. That will be less, it may be that you're very qualified, but if you wait too long, there just may not be enough room. Thirdly, even though I just suggested that you apply earlier rather than later, please don't sacrifice the quality of your application for the speed with which you want to submit it. In other words, let's say you're going to apply to 7 business schools, and initially your goal is to apply to all of them in the 1st round. Well, as you get closer to that 1st round deadline, you may discover that you don't have the ability to get all 7 applications in for the 1st round. That's okay. That is absolutely okay. What I would suggest, if you're in that situation, if you have a few, by this point, if you've done your research, hopefully you spent some time doing good research, and of the 7 schools to which you're going to apply, 3 of them are your top choices, then obviously my suggestion is focus on those 3 and get them in for the 1st round and let the others go till the 2nd round. If you try to cram too much ahead of time, you're going to risk making mistakes, avoidable mistakes, not intentional on your part, but nonetheless avoidable. That's something you can control. The more mistakes in your application, the more your credibility drops. And for me, at a certain point, if an application was riddled with mistakes, it didn't matter what else was in that application. That person was denied immediately. So be careful. Don't sacrifice quality for speed. Number 4, again, along that same line, don't rush or overly put pressure on yourself. Don't assume you have to get everything done right away. No, you can spread this out a little bit. Yes, as I said earlier, I do think if you're applying for rolling admission, try to get it in by January, late December, ideally, with deadlines no later than the 2nd round. But don't, now you've got some time here. You have some, what is this, July 12th. You still have some time. If you're working on applications right now, you've got some time to spread out your work, see what you still have to do, and make sure you have a realistic time frame to complete whatever it is that you need to do. Please, please be assured, I promise you, if you don't get your application in for the 1st deadline, there will be room after that, certainly in the 2nd round. no doubt about it. And it's possible that every so often just an outstanding applicant applies in the third round or applies later in the rolling admission process, and they are so amazing that they do get admitted. I'm not saying that no one ever gets in, it's just a much smaller number. But if you don't get it in for the first round, relax. Do not assume all is lost, because it isn't. There is still plenty of room if you wait till the second deadline or a little later in the rolling admission deadline months. Also, please remember this: there never was, there never is, and there never will be a perfect application. Ever, ever, ever. There never has been a perfect application. Nobody is perfect. Every application, I'm telling you, there are no perfect applicants in this process. I never saw one. In the 28 years, by the way, I evaluated 80,000 applications, about that number, at Chicago Booth. Over my 28-year period as a dean of admissions, the total number of applications I evaluated was over 125,000 applications. I never saw a perfect one. I saw outstanding applications, thousands of them, but not perfect. Do not put pressure on yourself. You're not going to submit a perfect application, but you want to submit an outstanding one, the best that you can do. Lastly, this is just something to keep in mind. An outstanding second round application is far, far better than a mediocre first round application. If you can't get it ready for the first round and be sure that it's exactly what you wanted it to be, wait till the second round. You will be far better off, I'm telling you. And it's very evident when I would evaluate first round applications, it was very clear to me who was rushing, who was trying to just get it in for the first round. You could just tell, not every time, but often. So keep in mind, don't rush, don't sacrifice quality for speed. And yet, with that said, try to apply earlier rather than later. All right, I see we've got some questions coming in on this particular topic. That's excellent. I hope you'll keep them coming as we now go to the next part of our presentation here. And that is, very quickly, I just want to share some do's and don'ts with you as you continue to prepare your applications. This is in chapter 2 of my book, by the way. If you decide you want to get it, there's a lot more in chapter 2 about the whole application process, every single part of it that you could imagine. But let me just share 7 do's and don'ts today. Number 1, do be assertive. Don't be arrogant or argumentative. I could have also put the word do be confident and assertive. There is a huge, huge difference between confidence and arrogance. It's huge. And if you come across as arrogant, or if you start arguing about application instructions, or you have a conversation with an admissions staff person and you start yelling at them or telling them that they're wrong and you're right or whatever, you have just nailed your coffin, so to speak. It's over. You can be assertive, you can be confident, but you never cross the line to arrogance or being argumentative. That's the kiss of death for your application. Number 2, here again, do be confident, don't be conceited. That's just another way of saying that first one. Again, if you want to be sure that your qualities, that your strong points are talked about, do you know who does that for you? Your recommenders, not you. You can say, I was promoted here. I was given an academic honor, and here's what it was for. Of course, you can say that, but you never, 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 never start touting yourself. Oh, I have the greatest communication style. People have said this. I'm not making this up. I was the greatest communicator in my class, or I was the most outstanding student of any student in my class. Oh, no, 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 no. The minute you go there, you've just lowered your credibility. Confidence, yes. Arrogance, no. Maybe that's the best way to describe these two. And of course, Do not argue. Do not argue. I don't care what it is. You do not argue with the admissions committee. You can question them. There are things they might say that don't make sense to you. And after you get off the phone, you may have a few words you'd like to share with them, but you do not do that. You remain professional at all times. Next, you can be persistent in certain ways, but please don't be a pest. Do not call the admissions office every single week or send an email every week. We had applicants at Chicago booth. This would happen all the time, every week. I just want to check in and let you know how interested I am. I just want you to know that I had a really good conversation with my boss, and he told me I'm doing a good job. No. That is way too much. If by persistent, I mean continue to present an attitude that you want to go to this business school. Let them know that you definitely, whenever you have a chance, you can do that. But you don't call them every week. You don't update them. You know, it almost got as silly sometimes as applicants saying, I helped an old lady cross the street today, or I took groceries to a shut-in who couldn't get out to get them. I mean, it becomes ridiculous, and it will not help you. It will absolutely hurt you. Oh, this is critical. Do be yourself, folks. Just be yourself. Why? There's only one of you, and you're a very special person, even if you don't think you are sometimes. You are. Oscar Wilde said it best. The philosopher Oscar Wilde said, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. And if you try to be someone you're not, it's going to come out. We're admissions deans. We're not psychologists. We're not trained in psychology, but we know a fake when we see one. You do. I'm sure in your day-to-day dealings, if you're in your work setting or you're at a party or you're socializing, you kind of get a sense when you meet somebody who's fake, who isn't on the level. What does that do for you with that person? Does that cause you to want to get to know them better? No, it causes you to back up a little bit. I don't know if I trust this person. I'm going to have to be careful. Well, it's the same thing in the application process. Let them see you. Let them know you. There's only one of you, and you have a lot to share. So please do be yourself. Do put your best foot forward, folks, but never, never, ever embellish or lie. This isn't. Now, could you be tempted to do that? Of course, we all are. We're human beings after all. There's nothing terrible about you if you're tempted to cheat. I've been tempted. We all have. But there's 3 words. Remember what I said, do your research? Here's another 3 words for you. Just say no. When the temptation comes, that's fine. I'm a human being. I'm going to be tempted. Just say no. If your GPA is 3.25, do not yield to the temptation to change it to a 3.52. That is going to be noticed most of the time. Admissions committees are getting very savvy about trying to determine if someone has misrepresented themselves in any way in that application. And as soon as that's discovered, you're out. And where some schools are concerned, I'm going to share this. When I worked at Chicago Booth, we were members of a 10-school business school group. I had 9 other colleagues, 9 other deans of admissions around the country at other business schools with whom I communicated. If any of us found out that an applicant had cheated or misrepresented himself or herself, that information was sent to all of us. All of us found out. So it's not, and you know what? You don't have to do that. You have enough going for you. If you need help to put your best foot forward, I'd be happy to work with you. 97% of my MBA coaching clients have gotten into all the top schools, and I've helped them to craft their story. You can work with another consultant. It doesn't have to be me. There are many good ones out there. If you need help to do that, get the help you need, but never, ever risk your future as an MBA candidate by embellishing or lying. You don't have to do it. You really don't. Next, do stay calm, but don't overreact if there's a problem. This shows your level of maturity. Let's say that somehow you have submitted everything in your application and you get a message from the admissions committee saying that they're missing something, and you know you sent everything. I had applicants at Chicago booth. I'm serious. They would call me on the phone, curse at me, yell at me, tell me my staff were incompetent and stupid. Do you think that endeared that applicant to me? They were always denied immediately. I often told them so on the phone. I said, you know what, sir or ma'am, you've just been denied. I hope you never do this to another admissions dean, because you'll have the same response. Don't ever speak to me like that. There's just, and yet applicants just go crazy. If something happens, it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. They're not trying to test you. They're not trying to throw something at you to make it harder for you. No, they're trying to do their best, but maybe they've made a mistake or they missed something. When they let you know that there's something missing that you thought you sent, your first response ought to be, oh, thank you so much for letting me know that. I thought I sent that, but I'll send it again. That shows what? That you're being persistent, that you're letting them know, hey, I can handle something when it goes wrong. I don't fall apart. I don't start swearing. I don't call the admissions staff stupid or incompetent. That is critical. This happens more than I could ever tell you. I could write a book about the way applicants respond when something goes wrong or if there's a problem. Don't you be one of those who gets in trouble. Be calm, be professional, be mature. And lastly, if you can, try to lighten up a little bit and enjoy this process. Now, there's a lot to it. And obviously, when any of us put ourselves out there and we have to wait for somebody else to tell us whether or not we're, quote, good enough or we're a good enough match that they're going to admit us, that's a very vulnerable feeling. And the more we're interested in a school, the more vulnerable we feel when we apply, knowing that there are many other applicants that are going for the same seat we are. But that doesn't mean that we have to act like this is, some applicants are so convinced that they must go to one school only that they get crazy if it doesn't work out. That's way too much, folks. Your life, your success in life doesn't rest with the particular business school you attend. I'm here to tell you, it has nothing to do with that. It might have something, but at the end of the day, what is going to take you where you're going to go successfully is right in here. It's inside. Your integrity, your honesty, your persistence, your determination, your ability to work with others. That's what's going to take you where you're going to go. A business education is going to help, but please do not act like one school or two schools at this, if you don't get in, it's the end of the world. That is simply not true. There's no experience to back that up. So try to enjoy and learn about yourself as you go through the process. There's a lot to it, I grant you, but it can be a very exciting journey for you. All right, let's go to our final part of this presentation before we've got more questions coming in. This is excellent. Now, 7 critical tips regarding preparing your applications. I'm going to go through we're already 35 minutes in. I've got to shorten this here as quickly as I can. So bear with me, keep your safety belt fastened. And if you'll give me a minute, I need a drink of water. I promise it's water in here. Okay. 7 critical tips regarding your applications. Number 1, plan ahead, folks. Don't wait till the last minute. Think about there are basically 5 sections of the application, usually. Your resume, your transcripts and test scores, your recommender information, your essays, and then 5th, the busy part, the name, the address, all of that busy work. There's 5. Make sure you've allocated enough time to do all of those things. It's not going to take you weeks and weeks, but it's not going to take just an hour or 2 either. So make sure you plan ahead. make sure you know what you're doing. If you have to create a timeline, with some of my coaching clients, I actually help them create a timeline if that's what they would like to do. It can be very helpful. Number two, oh, I wish I didn't have to say this, but I do. Please read and follow directions, folks. I don't know what happens, but oftentimes applicants do not do this. They're asked to submit 2 letters of recommendation. They submit 5. They're asked to write a 750-word essay. They write a 1,500-word essay, double the word limit. If you can't follow simple directions, do you know what that says to the admissions committee? We then say, you know what? Is this person really going to be able to handle the requirements that we have for getting through the program? If you can't even follow directions at the beginning, if you don't understand something in the directions, by all means ask. That doesn't make you look dumb. That actually increases your clout, because it lets them know you're taking their directions seriously and you're trying to do what they're asking. And if, let's say with recommendation letters, you feel you must send a 3rd letter, you're only supposed to send 2, but you feel like a 3rd one would just somehow make all the difference. Ask if you can do that. Don't just assume. Write an email and ask them. I was asked this many hundreds, thousands of times at booth. If somebody said, may I submit 1 more letter? I always said, absolutely, of course you can. So make sure you read and follow directions. Number 3, proofread everything that you're working on. But on the flip side of that, please don't obsess. People just get crazy. They'll proofread something 15 times and they'll keep changing it over and over and over again. No. Once you're pretty sure you have what you want, you proof it, have someone else proof it. Oops, I'm sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. You proof it, have somebody else proof it. Get a second pair of eyes. And then remember, you are not seeking perfection. You are seeking an outstanding application. There's a difference. All of us are outstanding in many ways, but none of us are perfect. The same with your application. So proof it, get a second person to take a look at it, or 3rd, but don't obsess. Now, if there is something in your application that you believe is going to raise a question with the admissions committee, for instance, maybe there's a gap in your work experience. Maybe you've had 4 jobs in 3 years. Maybe your GPA isn't what you would like it to be. Your test scores are low. There's something about your application, or a couple things, that you think could raise a question. You want to get ahead of that. You want to be proactive. You let them know why that is the way it is. You give them an explanation, but not an excuse. By excuse, I mean, oh, life is so sad and life is so hard, poor me. No. That's not appropriate. But an explanation is very appropriate. Absolutely. If there's a reason that your test scores didn't go as you hoped, or your GPA, or you had several years of a gap in work experience, or you've had a lot of jobs in a few years, whatever it is, you should be explaining that. In fact, in many MBA applications, there is an additional essay just for that purpose. It's called the optional or additional information essay. They'll even say sometimes, is there anything else about your application that you would like us to know? There you go. That's the place to do it. Okay, so make sure you offer what? Explanations, not excuses. Number 5, we've already covered this. I won't go over it again. Don't yield to the temptation to cheat. What's the 3 words? Just say no. You can do it. Number 6, be professional at all times, whether it's an email message, whether it's a voicemail message that you leave, a text message, a WhatsApp message, whether you're on Zoom with them or Skype, whatever way you're communicating, you need to be professional, not fake. But you need to be. I believe today in this presentation, I'm seeking to be professional in my presentation. You need to do the same. You don't, this is not a time for telling jokes or being, if they ask you, how are you doing today? Okay. No. How are you doing today? I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you? Or have you applied yet? Yeah, I put it in. No. Have you applied yet? Yes, I certainly have. That's what I'm talking. Professional, the more you're involved, if the more contact you have with them, however much, if it's consistent on your end, every time they interact with you in writing, in person, virtually, whatever it is, and they get this continued professional, that's going to help you, because unfortunately, many applicants don't remember to do that at every time. Lastly, please let them hear whose voice? Your voice. The best compliment I ever received for my book was from my dear friend and former boss, Dr. Darlene Bailey, who said, I didn't know she was going to say this, but she said, as you read this book, you're going to hear Don's voice. You're going to hear him. That really made me feel good, because that when you write your essays, this is one of the things about coaching you need to be very careful about. Be careful how much you have your essays all turned around and made upside down as if your coach was submitting the application. That's a huge mistake. You need to speak in, they need to hear you. This is your application, not your coaches, not your girlfriend or boyfriends, not your faculty member, your advisor, your family. This is your application. And by the way, be careful that you don't get too much advice from too many people who don't know anything about the application process. This is a huge mistake. Boyfriends, girlfriends, parents, faculty members, a work colleague, or somebody who went to that school, all of a sudden become an equal expert for the applicant, and they look at their information equally with a coach. That is a mistake. That is a huge mistake. Be very careful how much advice you get from people who have absolutely no knowledge. They've never worked in admissions. They've never made admission decisions. They have no idea about the process. Be careful. Can they share with you some thoughts? Yes, but be very careful how much weight you place on those thoughts when they've had no experience with the admissions process whatsoever. Okay, we're nearing the end. Oh, we've got more questions coming in. This is excellent. Now, very quickly, I've talked about my book here. You can get this on my website for actually half off if you use the promo code GSRM here. You can go to the website, click on the book page. It's a 105-page comprehensive book. First chapter, all about the research process. Second chapter, all about the application process. Third chapter, how to succeed once you're there. I've never seen a book talk about that. And in the final chapter, the top 10 questions from 4 groups: prospective students, applicants, admitted students, and current students. The top 10 questions from each of those groups and my responses. So if you're interested, you'll find it on the website. Now, I do offer one-on-one coaching. As I said, my clients work exclusively with me. This is based on all that experience of evaluating applications at Chicago Booth and more than that. It does not cost thousands of dollars. I'm telling you, it doesn't. And I do offer a free 30-minute consultation. If this is of interest, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll give you my contact information in a minute. 2 very important upcoming webinars, folks. I hope you'll spread the word. On September 13th and October 4th, we're going to be talking about the interview process, but we're going to talk about it in a very unique way that I don't think is often discussed. We're going to talk about it first from the interviewer's perspective, and then we're going to talk about it from the interviewee. So we're going to talk about it first from the perspective of the person who's going to conduct the interview, and the second one is going to be for the person who's getting interviewed. You'll never hear this anywhere else. So I hope you'll tune in on September 13th and October 4th and join me and Unimi Prep when we present these webinars for you. Okay, here's my contact information just before I turn it back over to Nellie. There's my email address. You can go on to gradschoolroadmap.com and click on the contact request form if you want to do it that way. Please don't be a stranger. If we don't cover something today that you asked, or if you'd prefer to ask me privately, you can feel free to reach out at any time. Nellie, as always, it is truly an honor and a privilege to work with you and your wonderful team. I thank you for giving me this opportunity again, and I'm now going to turn it over to you to see if we have some questions.
Thank you very much, Don, for sharing your wisdom with us. Indeed, we have a few questions covering very different topics.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you will be surprised.
Okay.
So I'm starting right away with the first question. Is it okay to apply for a second time in the same school if I have been rejected the first time? Do I have a chance? So what do you think?
Oh, I'm so glad whoever asked that question. That's a wonderful question. And the answer is an overwhelming yes, yes, yes. You can absolutely reapply. I'm sure you probably were asking this because, like many applicants, thousands of applicants, you may feel as though if you were denied the first time, you'll automatically be denied the second time. That is the opposite of what happens. Oftentimes, reapplicants, the percentage of reapplicants who get admitted is higher often than the percentage of first-time applicants who get in, depending on the selectivity of the program. Now, what you want to do is try to understand if they'll give you feedback, ask for it. If you were denied, ask if they're willing to share with you something about your application that they thought came up short. If they're not willing to do that, do some self-assessment or hire a coach. You can talk with me. I often I work with countless applicants who are reapplying, and we take a look at their first application and try and determine, oftentimes we find things that can be better, can be much better. So, I'm so glad you asked that. Yes, yes, yes. If you want to reapply to the same school, you should absolutely feel free to do so.
Did you hear this, guys? Don't getting discouraged.
That's right. We're not going to get discouraged. We're going to get encouraged.
Thank you for this positivity, Don. Another question, will an early application increase the chances of getting a scholarship? I think you briefly mentioned.
I did. That's a great question too. And if your application is in, typically for rolling admission, if your application, if they open October 1st, typically if your application is in by the end of January or December or January, yes, you would be considered for scholarships if admitted. What I would suggest you do, just to be sure, if it's rolling admission, is to send an email and ask them if I'm going to when is the last possible date that I could submit my application and still be considered for rolling or for a scholarship if I'm admitted. For deadlines, my suggestion is that you should get it in by the second deadline. They may even tell you that in their instructions, that for scholarship help, but as a rule of thumb, generally speaking, you should not wait beyond the second deadline if you wish to be considered for scholarships. Great question.
Thank you, Don. Okay, another question. From your experience as admission director, can you give advice how to make a good impression to the admission committee?
Well, that's a great question. And once again, I guess there are a couple of things I would say can make an impression on the admissions committee. First, just be yourself. Do not try to be somebody you're not. When you are yourself, it's going to come out. It's going to be there. And that endears people to you, anybody, as opposed to, if the first time I met Nellie, I acted like I was totally somebody else. I would have never been invited to help do these webinars, I'm sure. But Nellie has come to know who I am because I don't try to be somebody I'm not. Nellie doesn't try to be somebody she's not. Every time I interact with Nellie, she's the same. It's not like one week it's this Nellie and the next week it's totally somebody else that I don't recognize. She's herself. That is, I can't tell you how important. And you know what? Being yourself comes through in writing, on the telephone, in a text message, on a Zoom call. Once again, be yourself at all times. Secondly, follow directions. Do what you're asked. Thirdly, answer the questions you were asked in essays. Some applicants, let's say an essay says, tell me about a time in your work experience when you made a mistake. How did you handle that and what did you learn? Okay. And then they have 500 words to answer this question. The applicant says, okay, this is what happened. Here's what I learned. And then the second half of that essay goes into a large monologue about why they want to go to that business school. Or here's something I did well and what I learned from it. You weren't asked that. You were asked only to talk about a mistake you made. Answer the questions and only the questions. Believe me, that shows whether you read your instructions. Be on time, be professional always. If you have contact with them, if anything goes wrong or whatever it is, you keep the same professional demeanor every time. These things may seem very minimal, but they aren't. And per my last webinar, and if you want to see that, if you haven't seen it, please let Nellie and her colleagues know. Good recommendation letters can make or break an application because most of the time they're terrible. 90% of the time, recommendation letters are horrible. They don't help at all. So if you have two really strong ones, that will make a difference. Those are some things I would suggest. I'm so glad you asked. Those would be my suggestions for you.
Thank you, Don. I know this was a really big question and there is a lot to talk about here.
That's all right.
Okay, we have an interesting situation here. There is someone saying, I have decided already to postpone my MBA application for 2023. Should I reconsider to change the program with a different one from the one I have chosen for this year?
All right, let me make sure I'm understanding this question. It's a good one, but I want to be sure I understood it. I believe this person is asking if they wait to start their MBA, let's say in the fall of 2024, will somehow the program they're interested in that was going to be a certain way if they started in the fall of 2023 change somehow? Nellie, is that what you believe we're asking here?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but I think something in this line. Yeah.
Okay. That is a very good question, because obviously if you are thinking about a program and you've done your research, you're going to be looking at courses and curriculum and faculty and how that program is offered. And yes, there could be some changes. Here are some things that could change from one year to the next. Some faculty could retire. They may no longer be there in 2024. Or some of them may go on what's called a sabbatical. Every 7 years, a tenured faculty member gets to take a year off with full pay, but they're not working at the business school. They have a year off. So that could be the year that this faculty member is taking a sabbatical. There could be courses that are dropped and added to the curriculum list from one year to the next. And this is less likely, but it's possible that there could be a complete program change that nobody thought about. But that is very rare. But course changes, courses being dropped and added, faculty leaving or going on sabbatical, yes, those things could change from one year to the next. Good question.
Thank you, Don. Very useful information. We have one question left.
Okay.
Still a little bit time. If someone else wants to jump in and ask another question, the Q&A box is open. Okay, the last question is about motivation for choosing a specific school. And this is a person says, part of the reason why I have chosen the school is because my father attended it. How do I explain this in my application?
Great question. I'm so glad you asked this. The fact that one of your parents attended that program is not meaningless, but that's not a major reason you should be choosing that program. Your father attended that program many years ago. It may not be anything like what it was when he attended. That isn't going to help you very much. If you want to say something at the very end, if they ask you, why are you thinking of the program? There should be other much more important critical reasons you chose that program for you, why you want that program now. If you want to happen to say, and not to, as if all of that isn't enough, you do have a very good fan in my father who's told me how wonderful it is. You can say that, but that you do not spend a lot of time discussing the fact that your father went there. That doesn't help the admissions committee at all. Good questions. These are excellent questions, every one of them.
Thank you very much, John. It seems that we don't have any more questions, but we covered a lot of really good points here today.
Yes, we did.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. From both of us, we wish you best of luck in your academic journey.